Markie was a 26-year-old normal guy. Sure, he had his problems, but that don't justify him being murdered in cold blood. Many believe this stemmed from a drug deal gone bad. They called him a narc, and for that, he was murdered. Not only did they murder him, they filmed it. This story is not only about the murder of Markie, but the possible corruption surrounding the investigation. Is this a case of a small town covering up what really happened that day? This series will investigate the murder, the possible corruption, and how this is probably not an isolated case throughout the United States. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Investigate Earth podcast. I'm your host, Chad, alongside my wife, Sherry. Say hello, Sherry.
Hello.
All right, guys. So we have a little bit, I'm not going to say a different podcast, because for those of you that have listened to our Murdaugh Murders podcast and everything else, we typically only do podcasts on this podcast, or only episodes on this podcast that really need some kind of publication or just public awareness or whatever the case may be. The Murdaugh Murders is definitely one, and this is definitely another one. So just to kind of give you a preface to what this is about, Markie was murdered. He and Sherry became friends with his mother throughout the last 4 years. Markie and his family are from Arkansas. And so we had kind of connected with that story towards the beginning of our podcast, actually. And it was something that we were always pretty passionate about. It was a story that we were passionate about. It was something that we felt like needed public attention. And it never kind of worked out in the beginning to kind of get something going on this particular topic. But so here we are, about 3.5 years later.
Well, this is the 5-year anniversary, actually.
Yeah, this is the 5-year anniversary of Marquie's
murder.
So
I've known Marquie's mom for 4 years now, and this is the 5th year.
Yeah, it's the 5th year. It's 5th year anniversary of his
murder. So I guess he would be like 31.
Yeah, so the reason we brought this episode on our podcast is for a couple of reasons, but not only is any murder that's unsolved or that goes unsolved tragic and horrifying and everything else for the families involved, but I feel like this particular case and this particular incident really shines a light on a lot of things that happen, especially throughout the United States, but especially in small towns and where there is high power and big influence outside of the public view. And when I say outside the public view, there are things that can happen in big cities, but there's so many eyes on big cities and what happens. But even now in 2021, you're starting to see the just absolute, complete lack of accountability on behalf of cities and governments and local organizations and everything else. You're seeing this on a big scale now, such in New York City, Chicago, California, all these places. And so sometimes when this happens in smaller towns like Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is where this story takes place, this is things that we don't, as people that go about our everyday life, we don't ever think about or we don't ever see and we never hear about it because it is a small town. And the crazy thing is imagine being a family or a mother or whoever it is that is put in this position, that is facing something that is a murder of their child, and they feel like it is, possibly could be corruption or something that could be involved, at least some type of cover-up. And
really, sorry, babe, I promised I was not going to interrupt. I promised. But it's really like any mother that has a child that's murdered, no matter what it is, they want to get to the bottom of it, and they want justice.
Yeah.
And they want something to happen out of that. Like, somebody has to be accountable for the murder of their child.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
So my point is that big cities, you're seeing it now, the corruption on mass scales. You're seeing corruption on mass scales in the government, and there's so many things going on. But imagine being in a small town where there's no public view, there's no public opinion. I mean, there's good and bad things about public opinion in big cities. I mean, usually the government still will cover it up, even if it is in the public view. But imagine being in a small town where you have no hope in a lot of ways. There is no media attention. There is no nothing. Even if there is media attention, it's the local level, unless your family is prominent, right?
Exactly, and that kind of goes with the Murdoch murders.
The Murdoch murders. They're a prominent family. They're a small town, but they're prominent. They
made national news.
Yeah, they're in law and all that stuff. But if you're not prominent, you have no voice, and so that's kind of what we're going to try to do here. And Sherry's going to talk a little bit about Mark Hayes and who he was, and kind of the basis of kind of his life and all that stuff, and his family and all that. And then I'm gonna, and this is not going to be a crazy long podcast. This is going to be a series, because we're going to kind of dig deep into what happened here. Why do we think there's corruption, so on and so forth. We'll give you a little bit of that tonight, but not a lot. This is probably going to be about a 30-minute episode we're planning. But yeah, Sherry, go ahead and talk a little bit about Mark Hayes and kind of how you at least came to know his mother and all that stuff.
Well, actually, thanks, Chad. I've known his mother for like 5 years. Yeah, 4 years. 4 years. And I've known his mother, and I've learned everything about Mark. So I feel like I know him even though I didn't really grow up with him. I really know what type of person he was and where he came from and his beliefs and his values. And he was really just like one of us. He was a normal boy growing up. He lived in Arkansas. He also was in a group of all of his family. He grew up with his cousins. It was that kind of that kind of family that, everyone belongs, and it's, not just your family, but it's your cousins, your aunts, your uncles. So all these people are together. So it's a small family, but it's a tight family. And it's also a big family, when it includes your other family. To me, when I think about my family, I have no aunts and uncles around me. They're across the, America. So this was a close-knit family is what I'm saying. And he, had a sibling, and he also had a lot of cousins, aunts and uncles that totally loved him. I interviewed several of them. I think I interviewed actually all of them, everybody that was close to Mark. And I just asked, what kind of person is Mark? I just wanted to know, who is he? What could I say about Mark that I could tell the world about?
And I think there was one thing you took from that, too, was that he was very close to his family.
Yeah, he was very close to his family.
And his family loved him very much, and especially, I believe, his brother and so on. Yeah, I remember
his sister.
that.
Yeah, his sister, yeah. So, after, talking to all of them and getting to know Mark, I felt I knew Mark personally. And I really feel like I do. And this is the type of guy that Mark is. He's a type of guy that he just grew up in a family full of love. He was always the jokester in the family. He was always the one telling jokes and, trying to get people to laugh.
Life of the party, yeah.
Yeah, life of the party. Just wanted to have a good time, wanted to be funny. He was really just a good person. Mm-hmm. He hung out with all kinds of groups of kids from his school. It didn't matter. He fit in. You know how you have groups in your school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, he just kind of, was with all the groups. He got along with everyone. There was no one that did not like Mark. Mark was one of those people that you cannot not like, right? Mm-hmm. So, he was a really good guy. I don't know. Everyone just loved Mark and just thought he was really funny. And there was a time in his life that, we all kind of do things that we're not supposed to do.
Experiment and so on, yeah.
We all do that. I can't think of a time that I've not done anything that I wasn't supposed to do. And I think you guys are the same way. We all try things that we probably shouldn't have done or whatever. But he experimented in the wrong things. And I think that's the time when he kind of met the wrong crowd. Yeah. So he hung out with this crowd for a while, and after a while, he figured out, like, this is not my life. This is not who I want to be. I'm better than this. So Mark really, like, overcame all of that and got clean. And after getting clean is when this actually happened. Like, you think about most people that finally get clean and everybody's happy, you're not expecting them to get murdered.
Well, actually, no. Usually, people are not happy when someone gets clean, and that's part of the issue. Or even when they're trying to get clean, and just to take something on what you're saying though, is that 75% of Americans or people around the world. I don't even know about people around the world, but 75% of Americans experiment with things, and there is a certain percentage of those people that get caught up in things that they have a tough time getting out of. And it makes it very hard. I mean, you look at Chicago and you look at gang members and so on and so forth. Their life is predisposed to that, and they can't ever get out of that.
Right.
It is their environment, is their situation, and especially in small towns when everyone knows everybody and and so your friends and who you kind of develop when you start experimenting with anything is something that can turn deadly, as in this case.
And I just think of Mark, I think of Mark as like one of your friends. He had the same personality as your friends. He likes trucks. He likes to go four-wheeling, all the guy stuff, like just having fun, like in the country. It's not like they're going out to the city and going to bars and doing all these things. These guys just found ways to have fun because they're in a small town, and this is what he did. And I think he really loved his life. He did have a child that I know that he loved dearly. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that he loved his, child dearly. But, he was just like an all typical American kid in a small town, doing what American kids do, having fun, going mudding, going four-wheeling, having a truck, and always making jokes and trying to make sure. And I think this is a point that I really got out of all of his family. Like everyone I interviewed, they all said the same thing, that he was a jokester. And I think that's really important, because when you're a jokester and you're like trying to make people laugh, it's because you want people to feel good about themselves or feel good in general. And I think Mark was that kind of guy that just wanted ultimately people to feel good and have a good time. He's not one of those people that were like negative or did anything bad or made you feel bad about yourself. He was really a good guy.
Yeah, and and one of the things too is that with anyone, it seemed like everything I've heard about Mark and all that stuff is like, there's a certain amount of people in life that they're content they're content with any mistakes they make. They're going to continue to make them. There's so many people that are content with being content with whatever they're doing. It seemed like Mark, obviously, he tried to get clean and off of everything that he experimented with. And he was on the path to that and doing that. And so he was someone that wanted to better himself. He wanted to get out of the current situation or the situation he was in. He, I believe, realized that he was with the wrong people. He was hanging out with the wrong people. And sometimes when you're in certain situations, you feel like, and let's just face it, even today especially, it's hard to find true friends. Even if you've never done anything.
Yeah.
and so unfortunately, when you go down and do some of the things that may influence you even deeper, and some of these people influence you back, and you feel like in a lot of cases they're your friends, and sometimes you feel like you can't get out of that because of certain situations or whatever the case is. But what happened here is something that is to be told across the country. It's not just about Mark Hayes and his murder, and it is, because there needs to be a something done about here's my thing with everything I've heard, and we're not going to go into detail on everything tonight, and we're going to be extra vigilant on how we talk about this and with you guys. But everything I've heard, it just there's a lot of corruption, and I don't even believe that. And this is just my opinion, and it's allegedly, but I don't necessarily believe the local law enforcement there doesn't know who did it. I believe they have a lot more information than they're letting on. And I don't know if you want to, should we go into that right now?
Well, I'm just saying,
because I think we've kind of...
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get really deep
No, we're
into
not.
it, but I'm just saying that
We're just going to kind of give a big
prelude,
picture.
yeah, of who Mark is and what he got into, and
Well,
and you're right. Like me as an adult, I have very few friends. Like the number one person I count on is you, right? And the second is my daughter, and then I put my friends underneath. So I don't think, I think we're all like that. That we all have friends, but who are your real friends? I don't know if any of us really have real friends, and if we do, it's like one or two.
all right, so let's talk a little bit about what happened. So Mark Hayes was murdered in September, 5 years ago, basically now. And so it's coming up on his 5-year anniversary. I don't know the exact date that he was murdered, but he was murdered in September, and they didn't find his body.
He went missing August 29th.
Okay, August 29th.
5 years ago.
But they believe he was murdered somewhere, so end of August, September.
Right.
Didn't find his body until November, and it was in a trash dump, right?
Right.
Is it a dump? Like a
literal
like a
trash,
landfill?
Yeah, like a landfill.
Okay. Yeah, so they found his body in a landfill, and they didn't find it until, a couple months later. So the big issue here is that just the course of the investigation and what happened. It was an election time here in this county in Hot Springs, Arkansas. There were 2 different county departments that were transitioning from, if you know anything about sheriff's offices and politics and everything kind of revolves around politics in sheriff's departments. Cities different because cities have chiefs that are hired
Right.
and so on and so forth. So it's not as political,
right.
even though it probably still is, but it's not as much.
Right. But
So
when you have
get
a sheriff, that's really political.
Yeah. So when you have a new sheriff coming into town, typically pretty much everybody that was either voted for that sheriff or whoever is fired, and they bring on all new people. New, seniority, the whole nine.
Yeah, and a lot of people get fired, I think, too, right, Chad?
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah, like the higher ups get fired, and they bring
even a lot of the
people.
officers. Yeah.
And at the time, I think Mark's case was so new. I think it was even like 3 months into the investigation when.
Well, I think the murder happened during the election.
Yeah,
the murder happened during the election, so it wasn't a new sheriff yet, from what I understand. And then, kind of right after he was murdered was when a new sheriff came into town, and the way the investigation was handled was completely, from what I hear, was ludicrous. And there's a lot of things in this department that we're going to try to get to the bottom of throughout the course of kind of our investigation in this, because if you look up Hot Springs, Arkansas, there are definitely deputies that are being investigated. There are deputies that are being investigated even by the FBI.
They're either resigning, I think, or
they're
even
resigning or being
fired.
fired. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy things happening
going on in this place.
In that department.
It might have took these 5 years to at least get to this point.
Yeah, but I don't even, the problem is the deputies right now in this department are not being fired or let go necessarily because of the murder or any of that stuff.
Oh, no, I'm just saying.
So I want to make sure that's clear. But I think anytime you have a corrupt and poisonous and toxic environment, you're going to start seeing this. And so this is something that we had heard about 4 years ago, that how toxic and corrupt this possibly could have been. And there were deputies possibly involved in some of the things that, there's been hearsay on certain situations. There's been hearsay that it is possible that some deputies could have actually told someone that Mark Hayes was a narc. He was an informant, which is what got him killed, possibly. And if that is the case, it could mean, some of the things that happened during the investigation or didn't happen, I guess, is the better way.
Right.
There's a lot of things in investigations, especially with sheriff's departments, local law enforcement, so on and so forth. They are the judge, juror, and executioner, right? I mean, they're the people that decide whether you're guilty, innocent. They always say that you have the right to be held, in trial by your peers or by a jury of your peers.
Exactly, yeah.
But the reality is, in a lot of these local departments, it starts with the sheriff's department. It starts with the officers. It starts with the administration that is over this county or whatever. If no one's ever brought to trial, if no one's ever prosecuted. And a lot of times it goes deeper than just a sheriff's department or a city department or whoever. It goes into prosecution. It goes into the whole political landscape. And the reason I actually ask today, I asked a family member. I said, "Well, I'm just curious, but obviously, was there a political change?" Now, I don't know if she was sure necessarily there was a political change, but I do know probably there was a political change, or officers got fired, so on and so forth. And typically, when that happens, a lot of times you'll have elections that also not only happen in the sheriff's department, you'll have elections that happen as a DA, the prosecution, so on and so forth. There's been so many things politically that's happened in the past 4 years that even the local judges and so on and so forth that may be Democrat or Republican can overrule certain things federally, which is crazy. And so it really gets into a power and control situation, and it goes even more unnoticed in small towns and small places. And is this the case here? We don't know, but we're going to try to get to the bottom and find out if that is. Because, look, if there's allegations or allegedly there were people that could have been part of the sheriff's department or part of this local government or whoever that could have been giving people tips and telling things about someone narking or snitching, as they call it, or whatever the case is, that got someone killed. And then later on, it was like this family was almost nearly begging to even get their body recovered fully
right.
from the murder site.
Family members actually found his body.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
And there was from what we hear, there was a gentleman.
Well, it was not actually them at first. I think it was.
Well, there was a gentleman. Yeah, there was a gentleman that wanted to collect award money for this murder, and supposedly he, I believe, was the first one that supposedly found this guy. And so, from what we've heard, was he I think lit a cigarette or something, and the way the smoke went is the way that he went to found where this. It sounds crazy. But I believe this guy probably knew from there's hearsay out there, and we'll have to kind of dig deeper on this, that the murder was actually filmed. And so I think a lot more people knew about it. And I think the guy that even probably tried to collect award money probably knew about it, probably either seen it firsthand, knew where it was, whatever the case is. Wanted to collect award money, wasn't actually allowed to collect award money for whatever reason.
No, I think they still want that reward money. But the thing with small towns is, in small towns, people they really don't have a lot of money. So even if they're offering $100, $500, $1,000, people are going to come out there with the money, or come for their reward, right?
Yeah. But the problem is that it may not have been the award they were wanting. Because if they set up an award and someone came forward that might have had something to do with the case, that might have also had to do with any type of corruption, I would probably see why they were maybe like, yeah, we don't want to give them award money because we don't want them to say whatever they know. Mm-hmm. It's possible. There's a lot of things possible in this whole situation.
Yeah, and I think there is possibilities that things are being said that are like, it's almost like the Murdaugh, murders. It's a small town, and people talk in a small town.
And there's a lot of power and influence involved. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, and a lot of people in small town, you go back to, a lot of people don't have a lot of money. And so government organizations and local entities always have more money. They always have more power. And so they're always going to rule over the people. If, for example, in this particular instance, and it's kind of what's going on in this country right now, but, if there were enough people that were together on solving Marquez's murder in this town, so say that 70% of the town wanted to solve this murder, right? It would be solved right now, or someone's ass would be grass.
Right.
That they wouldn't be elected anymore. They'd be prosecuted. There would be lawyers involved. There would be money involved. There'd be all these things. And it goes the same way. If someone's involved in a murder that you don't hear a lot about, and they got money, then you're probably not going to hear a lot about it.
Right.
Or if they're involved in the legal system. And I think that was one of the things about the Murdaugh murder is like, it's not even just the murders in that case. And I do refer back to this, but it's kind of like the opposite situation. You got the Murdaughs, which has a murder. They had a boat incident that killed a young lady. There was a lot of money and power involved in that in a local small town. And yet, the boat accident, everyone knew and thought that, hey, he was just going to get away with it. And then they got murdered. You still don't hear about that case. But there's a lot of power and money there. Here is kind of the opposite. The power and money is in the government. It's in the local government, the sheriff's department, the county offices. And if anyone is involved or has said anything or anything goes to trial to where the sheriff's department or whoever has any part of that case to where they're going to have to testify or other people are going to have to testify, they're going to do everything they can to not solve it because they know that solving a murder is going to bring it to trial, which then may cause problems for them.
Right.
And so a lot of unsolved murders, especially if there's corruption, they're going to do everything they can to keep it out of trial. And so, whereas if this thing was filmed, there were people that found the body, there were people that knew about it, there were people that wanted award money. That sounds like one of the easiest cases.
Yeah, but it's been 5 years.
Many people probably know who murdered.
Yeah, I think probably the whole town knows.
But it's all about the prosecution and the power that be.
And the power, and I think some people probably are afraid to come forward. You know?
I mean, maybe that's possible.
But at the same time that Mark was murdered, there was also a lady about the same age as Mark that was murdered like in that same very period.
Yeah.
And they don't know if that like goes along with his murder. Was she considered a narc? What I can say before going too deep into this is that, and this is one of the last things we're going to say on this particular episode, but when this family was causing a stink about, are you going to investigate? What is the deal? And look, in a small town, a lot of people talk. A lot of people know things that they'll tell the family, that they'll tell even people that may be involved in the government, that may be involved in they're inside people that are not corrupt, they're not whatever. They may tell people things that get out there. And so when this stuff started happening, this family's got their house shot up. And it was almost like intimidation, and there were things that were going on. It's almost like the Hatfield and McCoy shit, that was exactly what I was thinking, Chad. I was thinking that before we even started this podcast.
It's something like you would watch in a movie.
Yeah. And guess what? Nobody came to help them.
Yeah. Nothing was ever done about that either. And then even more recently, there's some weird things that have happened with the family, and so. It sounds like a case that you would put a movie around.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, in a way, this family's being threatened.
Yeah, I mean, they're being intimidated, probably, possibly, and who that's from and who it is, I don't know, but but just to make sure we all understand, we don't know any of this for fact. We're just giving you what we've heard. This is all allegedly, and our point to this is that. Maybe we can solve us as people. I know we've got 800,000+ followers on this podcast, and we've got millions of downloads of people. Some of you may have power and influence that you can help this family. If you do, please reach out to us if you're interested or know anything about the case or any of that stuff. We're going to have definitely a series on this. We're going to go more into detail about all the details of why the corruption, could have happened and why, who said what, and we'll kind of, we'll make sure that everyone's protected and everything, but we just want, this family wants the truth. There's thousands of families across the country that face similar situations, right. And that's why we wanted to make light of this. In 2021, it is a very, very corrupt place. And I can only imagine if this happened in 5 years ago, how corrupt it probably is now, if that is the case. And we need to bring light to it, and that's what we're doing. And we're going to make sure that we continue this series, and we're gonna update you guys on more information on this. We're gonna try to get some interviews with some people, and kind of just allow them to tell their story of what happened. And I think it's a very important story because even though this is one case that we're bringing to light, I believe this happens over and over again, and it happens not just on a small scale. In a small town, it happens all over the place. Corruption is in our face every day on the media. It's in our face every day on everything. 90% of what you hear in the media and the government and everything else, they're lying. 90%. I mean, literally, if you really think about it. And it's like, so then nowadays it's like the pandemic happened, mm-hmm. And it's like the media's like, no, this is your life. We're gonna make sure you think you're gonna die. So believe us now. We know that you don't believe us on anything else. And you don't believe the government on anything else, but you got to believe us now, right? And so this is one of those things. Not every department is corrupt. Not every government organization is corrupt, but it is becoming more and more and more and more prevalent. It's like if you see one roach in a house, right, and then you see 2 or 3 roaches, and you see 20, you're going to start thinking. I'm bound to see way more roaches because that's the way it goes. It manifests. It just and that usually is what happens. And if you have a roach at the top of some of these top power organizations, government entities, it's going to multiply. Because look, I've been in law enforcement. I know how things go. I also know that if you're not a roach in a corrupt department, you're not going to be there anymore.
Yeah, you're probably going to get fired.
Yeah, they're going to.
If you don't believe in the same things they do.
Or if you're a threat to them, they're going to fire you.
Yeah.
Or if you're a threat to anything that might come back on them, they're going to fire you. But what I do know is roaches usually breed other roaches, right?
Right.
But, the same is not said in other terms. So we want to bring this to light. We want to let you guys know we're definitely going to have more about this story coming up. Very, very soon in the next month. It'll probably be like a 2 or 3 part series. We definitely want to get some interviews. And we want to reach out to some departments and county figures and everybody else to see what their statements are.
And just reach out to anyone that has any information about Mark Hayes. Yeah. Mark Hayes died when he was 26 years old 5 years ago.
And by the way, for those of you that are listening, the name of this podcast is Mark Hayes. And so if anybody looks up Mark Hayes, we're probably going to be number one on that name for a while from now. So if you know anything or you hold some kind of conscious,
exactly.
that's something that you know and you're not saying, there's family members involved that are hurting because of this that will never know. And regardless of whatever you know, you need to come forward because it might be a lot bigger than you think. It's not necessarily saying you're going to be in trouble for knowing something, but you just got to do what's right. And that's the reality. I mean, imagine if your kid or your family member died and you had no idea, but you knew someone else out there did know that were refusing to say anything. And like I said, there might be people that are scared to say things. There might be people that are intimidated. There might be people that are whatever. But you can always reach out to us. Contact at investigativepodcast.com. If you do know something and you want to say it anonymously, even if it helps the case and you don't want to say, make a fake email, send us something. You don't even got to say who you are. But if you think it would help the case or anything like that, we would rather know something than know who you are.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So be sure to do that. Contact at investigativepodcast.com. And I think that'll do it for this episode. We just wanted to kind of preface what we're going to be talking about. This will be a series. We'll be talking about this over the course of the next month or so. And like I said, if you guys have any information on this case, please be sure to reach out to email. And
even if you
can do
don't
it
have information, I know there's a lot of you that are like me, that go towards things like this, and you investigate things and you find out way more than the police ever find out. If I have any of these
yourself if you want,
investigate it. And if you want to investigate it and you want to find information, please do that.
Yeah, it would help a family out, and you could be helping an entire county out. I mean, I think it could be bigger than one person, and it is usually bigger than one person. Obviously, there's something that's weird, and there's something that's weird in many cases. I mean, we know someone personally. There's things that are weird that lives here. So,
yeah. And I just want to say his name one more time, just so if you want to write it down and you want to start investigating it and trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's Mark Hayes, and it was Hot Springs County, Arkansas.
Yeah, it happened 5 years ago. He disappeared on August 29th.
And he was shot, by the way, is the way of murder.
Yeah, he was shot.
I don't know if we mentioned that.
So, and this was a small town in Arkansas, but if you want to investigate this, we can even maybe start a Facebook. I don't want to be in charge of it, but if somebody else wants to be in charge of it, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, like I said, this could help a family. If you have any information, please let us know. And we'll definitely be doing more episodes on this. So be sure you stay tuned to Investigative Podcast. And guys, we love you. Thanks for listening.
We love you guys. Thank you for listening.
And until next time, have a great night.
Dust breath in the air. 2 dark days. Do you have a tear to spare? Make a promise. The world awaits. It's heavy just breathing through this debate. Come on, start a riot. When they love you too much, know it's fake, fake, or even hate. Don't be scared if the weight paralyzes your state at the gate. No, it's a lot to take in. It's designed to know when, don't wait. stayed at the gate. Rigid light